We just thought we'd start by quickly introducing ourselves. I'm Jahan Zeb and I work with the mental health team at Ummeed. Really excited to be doing this Collab Salon and welcome to everybody today.
Hi Peggy, hi everyone. My name is Daisy Bhatena. I'm part of the mental health team at Ummeed and right now we're at the training center. Very excited to be part of the Collab Salon and looking forward to meeting you all and interacting with you all through this 1.5 hours.
And hi, I'm Jill. I'm very excited to be here, and we're actually, I'm also part of the mental health team, and what we thought we would start with is showing you the place that we work, and there's an exciting fun club happening in the next room. I don't know if you all can hear the music, so we're going to take you around first, and then we thought we'll start with our session today. So if you want to switch
Sorry, why am I? This is our staff area. This is the space where we all sit and have fun and all our conversations here.
And should we show our... That's Ravi. Ravi, do you want to say something?
Hi, I'll miss you all. I couldn't be there because I'm on my way to Mexico by when you'll be seeing this video.
Thank you.
Hi.
As always, food at Ummeed. That's our conference, weaving our voices.
Everyone back from the tour of the training center and some of the things that were happening today. We'll start off with the topic today, which is working with children and families experiencing developmental disabilities. We're going to be sharing some of the examples from our work using the narrative ideas and practices with children with special needs as well as their families.
So one of the things I think all of us use a lot in our work is visuals. A lot of times young people experiencing disability don't access language and use it in the same way as would be typical. And so one of the things that really helps them express themselves is the use of visuals. And what you can see on the screen is a depiction of a young person's world. So he's used drawing to explain to me all the things that are in his world, the things he hopes for, and the things he likes to eat and drink, and many other things using a vision.
And another thing actually that we use a lot also in our work, which is related to visuals and doing it in a visual way, is metaphors. And this is a story of a young person actually who was experiencing a lot of stress because she wasn't able to go ahead in her dancing lessons. And she didn't want to keep doing the same things again and again. And while we were having this conversation in the room, we used the tool of the metaphor, where we created, the understanding of why it's important for the base to be important, and that's where she placed the tiger because that's the strongest, and then putting all the animals above it, which represented all the other levels that will come on top when the base gets stronger, and that kind of increased her understanding about why it's important. At the same time, it helped her go ahead in what she wanted to do.
So one of the other things I think that we've found really helpful is to connect people's experiences with problems or difficulties to the physical sensations and the wisdom of the body. Again, keeping in mind the fact that they may not have access to verbal language in the way that all of us do. And so it helps them to recognize where in the body they might be feeling something. And the example that you see on the screen is a conversation around fear, and how this young person was speaking about where they experience fear, sometimes as a fire in the stomach and sometimes at the back of the neck, and how it slowly spreads from the neck to the head. And just being aware of where it is in the body made it so much more possible to respond to and manage that difficulty with fear.
Yeah. And similarly, another example where we used this with a young person with autism who was finding it very hard to express himself using words, but what he could recognize is bodily sensations. And when the anxiety came, the heartbeat started beating much faster, and also the voice started getting louder. And he was able to recognize this in other situations and able to apply the strategies that help him to kind of keep that anxiety low and feel better. So this is something that we use quite often in our sessions with children experiencing disabilities.
Something that really, really excites children is taking into consideration something that they really enjoy or they're very interested in. It could be music, it could be dance, it could be like a sport that they're very passionate about. And this is a story of an 8-year-old boy who loved cricket. And so to sort of handle or, the sort of experiences that he had was of meltdowns that he often had on the playground, and how it was coming in the way of building friendships or making friends, because he would not even allow other kids to play if things didn't happen the way he wished it to. And over time, we had a lot of conversations on externalizing different things that he was feeling around, the meltdown. So there was Mr. Meltdown, Mr. Crybaby, Mr. Rude. And we decided to have a cricket match. And he had two teams. One was the magic happy spells and one was the evil whiny spells. And both these teams, so the evil whiny spells team had all the externalizing means that he put in, and the magic happy spells had all the people who sort of supported him on this journey, like his parents, his grandparents, and me. And he was the captain of that team. And
in the match he won the first time we played, and the Magic Happy Spells team won. But there were some times when also the Evil Viney Spells team would win, and over time he realized that it's okay to lose. It's okay if every time you don't have things happening your way. And cricket really helped bring home the idea that it's okay to have. It's more important to have fun rather than get into fights and have meltdowns every time on the playground. So this is one way in which we used his interest.
So one of the other things that we've commonly experienced as we work with young people in general, but also young people experiencing disability, is it's difficult to sit and have a conversation maybe for the entire hour. And what we often do in our sessions is to put in movement and structure sort of as a part of the session, where we might have, say, a swing available, and this young person can sit on the swing and have that movement while they're having the conversation. We're privileged, we have an access to ball pool, so the young person can be in that ball pool, surrounded by the little balls, which can provide some sensation, especially for children experiencing sensory difficulties, or also with difficulties with attention and hyperactivity. The other thing is to also structure maybe the session itself in a way that there's movement. And I know one of the things that I've done sometimes is to arrange a treasure hunt or a clue hunt, where I might have different clues in different places, and the clues are actually questions maybe for a conversation where we're trying to maybe make somebody's hopes and dreams visible, or maybe it's an externalizing conversation, it may be anything, but the young person would run around, find the clue, open it up, ask the question, we'd have a small conversation, and then they'd run to clue 2. So that brings in the movement into the session. And then sometimes using visuals also to structure the session, so whether it's a whiteboard, or we might pin up things like, okay, the first 15 minutes will be movement and dance and play, then we'll have a 15-minute conversation, then we'll go back to doing something else, and that can also really help structure the session for young people.
Yeah. And another thing actually that we do in our sessions is using role plays. So one of the times I can remember using role plays is with a young person experiencing autism. And a lot of times what they experience, what happens is they're not able to kind of generalize what the skills that they're speaking about when they go out. And bullying is an experience that is often experienced by many of our kids experiencing disabilities, and it was the same for him. And what we did is in our sessions, we discovered skills that he could use when he was experiencing bullying, apart from working on the school context and other kind of areas. But we practiced it a lot, and which then he could go out and use when he was in that context again. So that's something that we use in our sessions too.
Again, we found that a lot of times it's hard for children especially to talk about difficult topics or things which they're experiencing as problem situations, and we found movies or books something that they resonate with. And oftentimes these conversations then are very easy to start off with when it's not something that you're talking directly about, something that they are experiencing, but it's a particular character or a protagonist of a book experiencing. So I found one example which is very, very sort of with a 4-year-old, which was something that really stays with me, about how it was worries that often came to him, and it made him sort of get into fights with people at home, but it would also get him to punish people, and he had almost this compulsion of punishing people, and he called them bad thoughts. And once when he was just reading a book on worry, and there was a metaphor of clouds being used, he came up with this whole thing of white clouds and black clouds, and how white clouds were the good thoughts, which or some of the things that helped him to sort of not punish other people in the house or get into fights with them. And the black clouds were sometimes, the bad thoughts or the urge of punishing people. And he often, would come and tell me, and we would have these conversations about, today the white clouds were a lot more, and, what were some of the strategies, that were useful to him, or that, he used to keep the black clouds away. So, the book was a good way to start off some of these difficult conversations. And very often he would even use this language at home. His parents started using this language with him about, the white cloud is there today or the black cloud is a lot more. So it was something that we found very useful.
Yeah, and often, I mean, we speak about not just children with experiencing disabilities, but children in general, that they may not have the skills, and we'll have to provide them to that. But we've noticed this, and I can speak for all, that throughout our whenever we, any age group, like for example, even 3.5, 4-year-olds, we've seen the skills and know-how, and going back to the idea that it is there, and it is something that we make visible by in our sessions, is something that we hold on to very strongly. And one of the things that we so this is actually an example that we wanted to share about one of the kids that I used to see, where exam anxiety was really high, and to a point where he would think that he's going to fail, or he's not going to do well, or he's going to forget his answers. And one of the things actually that really worked for him was a communal prayer. And he would deep breathe, and he would chant that right before his exams, and that really worked for him. And it's called, so we thought we'd show you a small snippet of the communal prayer that he chants every time he goes for an exam. It's called the Vakratunda Mahakaya, and I'm quickly going to play a little bit of it.
वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा
So this is something that he would use every time, he would go for an exam before his papers.
And I think just incredible amounts of know-how and possibilities that we've discovered as we work with young people. I think one of the understandings that we've come to is there's so much more than the labels that that people ascribe to them, and you hear so much about children with autism can do 1, 2, 3, or children experiencing intellectual disabilities can only do these things. But I think we found so many different stories about them, and so much skill in these young people, I think. So that's something that we wanted to put across. And I think the other, sorry, go ahead.
And it's also fascinating to see, how much of it, comes across in these conversations, but how interesting it is that, you can think of the best strategies, but these strategies will not come to your mind, for example, this, of this child thinking of a chant. These are all the skills and know-how that they bring in, and a lot of times, it is only them who can think, because they are the experts of their lives. So true.
So we thought we'd also move in a little bit to speak about our work with the families. I think one of the understandings in our context, and in India particularly, is that identity is really much more a community identity than it is an individual identity. And I think people draw a lot from their identity as a part of a family, as a part of a particular community that they might live in, or also as a part of a religious community that they might belong to. And so one of the things that is there's so many communal practices or ways of being. And why we want to speak about this is because a lot of times people experiencing disabilities, when they receive a diagnosis, it's a very isolating experience for the family, particularly for the parents, and particularly for moms, because there are a lot of understandings around particularly in India, about blame and stigma and how there might be something in your past life that you've done that's sort of come, or understandings about good omens or bad omens and things like that. But then there are also these communal ways of being, and so many people who get support from that. And as you can see sort of on your screen, this is a community that I belong to, which is a Bodhi Muslim community. And we have a communal way of eating. So we share our meals. We have a common plate like this. And whatever food is available is put on the plate and people divide it. And usually there's 8 people that sit together and eat it. And this is done in most homes on a daily basis, but particularly for celebrations. And that's Daisy in one of our family celebrations, coming and sharing sort of the food that we have.
And I think one of the things that really kind of stayed with me in my work with this young person was experiencing voices and experiencing not being socially appropriate is what was kind of said to him in many ways, and that needed to be fixed. And I remember him saying that he was sharing this experience of stress with me. And the reason I'm smiling is because I just found it so heartening to hear what he was saying, because he had invited, so there was a festival that was going on, and he had invited everyone for lunch. And usually, 8 people, like Jahanzeb said, that 8 people share the meal on one, and 9 of his friends turned up. And he said that I didn't know where to keep the extra person, but at the same time, we give them a return gift, which is a handkerchief. And he had only 8 of them, and he didn't have the 9th one, so he was getting a little stressed of how to deal with it, though he did deal with it and told the person that he'll give it to him later. But I think what really stayed was how, in spite of experiencing isolation, in spite of not being socially acceptable in many places, there was a way in which community came together. His friends would come together whenever he would call them. And it was just beautiful to witness it, that there is this communal way of being that he can often, that's his support system.
Also, it reminds me of a mom that I was working with, and she often spoke about how she was not part of the family occasions, very often sort of asked not to come for these celebrations because she had a child experiencing a disability. And, like in our culture, like Jay said, that it's very often, these parents or these moms are often asked to stay out because there's bad omen or there is something from the past life that is attached to it. And, in happy occasions, don't bring this bad omen with you. And she was feeling very lonely. She was feeling very isolated. And she was talking about one time when her son participated in a dance competition, and everybody from the neighborhood, everybody from the community went to sort of attend that, and the child won the competition, and how they had a celebration in the neighbor's house where somebody brought food, somebody brought gifts, and how they made it such a big deal for that family, for that child, and how she felt like, she, her identity over there felt like she was, a mom, also of a child who had difficulties, but also how she received so much support from everybody around her. Like anytime she wanted to go and run an errand, anytime she wanted to, have other things to do, she knew that she had, a community or a neighborhood where she could leave her child and he would be accepted and taken care of. So,
And I think one of the things that, we've been speaking about isolation and what is it that families go through, and that's something that we have noticed in our work over the years. That whenever a diagnosis is given, there are a lot of questions. Parents feel very lonely, and how do we bring parents together so that they can support each other and be with each other? Because that's something that we keep hearing in our interactions and conversations with parents. And one of the things that we do at Ummeed is we have this monthly family support group where parents come together. They bring the young person with them many a times. They support each other. They speak about strengths, successes. They speak about things that are not going well, and they bond over food, which is very special for all of us. Peggy would tell you a lot about our food experiences, and it's beautiful to witness these conversations that they have. And this is actually a picture of one of the conversations we had about what is it, that this space that they've created means for them, and what is it that about mental wellness that means for them. And they created this beautiful document together where they spoke about how mental wellness is important for them, and the little things and the not so little things they do to keep it together. And Jake, do you want to share some more?
So I think one of the things that really stood out in this group was how the moms were speaking about the space itself, and this coming together once a month is so important for them, that they don't let anything get in the way. They inform everybody well in advance. They make sure that this is the 3 hours that they're going to be away from home. And it's almost like a recharge for the rest of the month, but that space really brings that energy to them, and that support to them, which allows them to continue their caregiving and their day-to-day journey.
Yeah, and the little things that they do is so. I mean, one of the parents spoke about how she loves watching comedy shows, which comes on TV every day here. And even though and she does that while cooking, and she's not able to face the TV because the kitchen is on one side, but she does still hear the shows, and she's happy, and that kind of brings in, keeps the mental wellness with them. Another parent spoke about baking. One of the other parents actually spoke about attending a satsang, which is a communal prayer once a week, which kind of keeps mental wellness with them. And they kind of put all these little things together and created this document, which they do things that keeps mental wellness with them. And this is one of the ways in which we try to bring families together to create this space where they're there for each other. So, yeah.
So thank you. This brings us to the end of us presenting. But also we have some questions for you all to get into smaller groups and reflect about them. And if you have any questions, we can take them after you all finish discussing. So thank you for listening to us.
Did that video work for everybody? Good. I know that I had hoped we just did this and that we were going to put subtitles up, but I hope everyone could understand. And no matter what, rather than going into small groups, we thought we would just post 3 questions for us to talk about among ourselves here. So let me post them here to everybody. So the 3 questions are, what from this presentation stood out to you? What might you bring back into your own work or life? And what questions might you have for the Ummeed team? And I first just wanted to say I've been texting a little bit with Larry about how we figure out the recording, and then thinking about all the steps we've taken to see that bit of video, and all the plan B and maybe plan C we've had to do. And for me, this just reminds me of every time I've come to see you guys in Ummeed, in Mumbai, and how deeply I appreciate how, for you, these are just things you deal with every day, and you don't take them as seriously as we seem to in North America now, that, oh, we have to have it exactly the way we're used to. So I just really value that you just keep going the same. When we first started showing your intro video, and there was a lot of ambient noise in the background, and I'm like, yeah, that's the way things are to me. Just adjust to it, and that seems to be part of the ethos behind what you do. So I just wanted to really, along with, again, now it's like after 3 a.m. for you, thank you for that, and let's see what people have to say and ask you.
Thank you. Where are we? Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. I just thought that was, I have to go off to work today, and what I'm going to take with me, the beautiful images I had, and particularly the colorfulness. So I'm going to take lots of colorful thoughts and introduce color into my conversations today. But I do have to go, regrettably. But it's been such a wonderful experience, and very many thanks to the Ummeed team. It has been wonderful to meet them. So
thank you again. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so lovely to see you again.
Enjoy winter in Sydney.
All right, many thanks.
For me, what came through was warmth in many ways. The faces of everyone who are your team members and the children, a sense of pride in what has been created, and to see food and color and artwork, very heartwarming. So I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing and being brought into your beautiful world. Thank you.
I think, what you rightly pointed out, I think, especially when you work with young people, I think color comes in with that. But food is a really big part of everything that happens back home, and almost on a daily basis. And so we have to bring the food in.
Yeah, it's always there. Like you enter Ummeed and there's food. And that's actually, I think you enter any house and anywhere in India and there's food always that brings people together. So we had to have that there.
That to me speaks to so beautifully to the sense of community that is so implicit in the Indian culture. You know, it's something that I envy, and food is a great way to share and bring people together, isn't it?
I think, you're rightly so, Charlie. If you enter like any home, I think as soon as you enter, like people will just be obsessed with feeding you something. Even if you don't speak the same language, or sometimes there are, particularly for women, because a lot of times they don't maybe have the opportunity to have as much conversation. But that becomes a way of really expressing their affection or their love. That becomes a way of communicating for a lot of people.
I was thinking too about hospitality. That's what I walked away with in spades when I came to Mumbai. And you could see that there here. And also creativity in addition to color. The creativity, and almost a reminder when you've been in the field for so long, sometimes you forget to bring in just kind of incredible creativity to what you do. So it's just always a wonderful reminder in watching how all of you work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, when the last picture that we showed about the family support group, and where parents came together and created that document, and they spoke about how it reminds them of their childhood, and that they haven't had an opportunity to draw or paint, and it was like going back to when they were little kids, and they enjoyed that experience, like just like you said, Lynn. It just kind of was so important for them to do that. Like they went away feeling so good.
Also, when we are working with children and young people, I think it's very important to keep that as a medium, because it's very hard for them sometimes to have conversations for 45 minutes. But when they are doing these drawings and paintings and creating this artwork, it's just so much easier for them to engage in those conversations and to see
some of the problems or some of these preferred ways actually coming live when they draw and paint these images?
Remembered the children and their parents and you all singing to us at the convention, and it just I felt like where it was going to be a song any time now. It seemed like so much community and in the whole setup that it's lovely, actually. Thank you.
What I noticed was just such a sense of celebration throughout the themes of what you introduced, the idea of celebrating community, of sharing together, of the vibrancy of the images and the metaphors that you're working with the kids, and just the and bringing community together, celebrating identity through community. And like Charlie, the warmth was really stood out for me. But at the same time, the way you've showed us the structure and the intentionality of your thinking, that was really helpful. And also that the parents are included and resourced for helping the kids. It's a really lovely example of community for me. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I think, for us, it just the family, and it's so often it's not restricted just to the parents. So we'll have grandparents come in. It could be extended family, like, it could be an aunt or a sibling sometimes who's the main caregiver. So we really make sort of an effort to have everybody in as partners in the room. And it extends to anybody that the family might want to bring in. So sometimes it may be even a neighbor or a tuition teacher for the children. And I think that becomes a real important part of our work, because we really have an understanding that we are with people for a very short amount of time, but we really want as many people on board and collaborating in this journey. So thank you for noticing.
Yes, and just to add to what Jay was saying, as part of the sessions, we include everyone, but also what we've started doing a lot more at Ummeed is having parents come in, families come in and telling us, what is it that works for them. And we're trying to change our ways. We're trying to include more, in terms of the family-centered care. And because we believe that they know best, about their children, and that's something that we're now including in our policies as well. And we're having parents come in as trainers. Even in our sessions, we have parents come in and speak about their experience and what is it, and also advise us on what is it that other parents may require or want. So thank you.
I'd like to just add something as someone who has been incredibly fortunate to have come so many times I've lost track. It's either 5 or 6 times, and one of them was for Jill's wedding. And you have all become really more like family to me than friends, but also friends, and certainly way beyond colleaguehood. And one of the things that has been expressed here that I'm just so reminded of is the colorfulness, but also there's so many other modalities that you use. And when I go back and I'm in my office and I'm, I like the conversations I have with people, but they seem so kind of unidirectional after I come back from Mumbai, because the way that you bring in the food, the color, the families, the vibrancy, the culture, the laughter, the dance, the song, everybody was always breaking out into some other body kind of yes to whatever was happening. And so much creative energy that is constantly being called upon. And I think because you're in it, you may not be aware. So I'm here to tell you just how inspiring that is, and our use of technology to, across the time zones is our best attempt to try to share it. But I hope that others can join me in coming to Mumbai in late January, February, early February. And I wonder if you could just share a little bit, because your first gathering where Linda was there, Lynn was there, I was there, it was really extraordinary. So what are you planning this year?
So I think what we're really excited about in this conference is that we have a lot of local voices and from all over India, and I think that's something that's really kind of special for all of us, because we in the last 3 years we have been able to reach to many parts of India, and we have people from Assam, we have people from Goa, we have people from Hyderabad, Kolkata, everyone coming as speakers, and that's something that we're really looking forward to, and also their context of work. The context that they work in is different, and it'll be we're really excited to actually hear them speak about the work that they've been doing in their communities. So that's something that we're really looking forward to at this conference. So we have a mix of people from international as well as local speakers this time at Weaving Our Voices. Jay, Daisy.
I think one of the really exciting things that we've been able to put together this time is, the pre and the post conference workshops, where we're actually going to have workshops about using poetry and about, making these kind of collective creative documents, using a lot of the art and the color. And so, it's just really exciting. I think also to be able to have a second gathering, and, the first time we did it, we were not sure how it would go and how many people would come, but this time we're really hoping that people will come to witness our local speakers also, because it's been 3 years, Peggy, since we did the first gathering, and we've been on the road a lot since then. So we have lots of people in lots of different corners of India coming to talk about how they're really making the practices their own, and it's just so beautiful to hear their stories. So I'm really, really excited. And I hope all of you can join, really.
I mean, I know it's...
And we have as many as 60 speakers, Becky. So very, very excited. And this time we have breakout sessions. We have like almost 20 mini workshops happening on those 2 days of the conference. We have about almost 9 pre and post conference workshops. So a huge range of things happening at the conference, which would interest everyone. I think something or the other everyone sort of will find exciting and something to learn from.
I know those of you who really know me well know I'm an enthusiast, and I'm not necessarily objective here, but I have to tell you that the first Mumbai international gathering I went to all the years that I've gone to conferences was one of the absolute best gatherings I've ever been to in my entire life. So, and I say that every objective bone that I have in my body. So
I haven't got the same reason as you have to think it was wonderful, and I just loved it. I loved that we were in a parlor and that we were just part of everything, and it really was a wonderful experience.
I know that it's financially and time-wise not always possible for folks. If it is, you're thinking about a little bit of like, oh, I wonder if I could do that. Anything else people want to say? Because I know we're
What are the dates?
Yeah. You want to say the dates?
The dates? Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
It's
Daisy.
31st Jan and 1st, 2nd Feb. Sorry, 31st and then 1st to 4th of Feb, 2020.
So just put up, the flyer, and of course, it'll be up on Peggy's website and on our website, so people can go in and look for more details whenever, if you're interested.
So the conference is on the 1st and the 2nd of Feb, and the pre and post is, we have 2-day workshops. So.
Are there sort of any questions for us about any of the work or anything else that you'd like to know?
The only question I had is, in addition to the conference, are there hopes or things that are exciting you about next steps for Ummeed or new developments? So I hear you're traveling around the India, and that sounds, I know that was occurring 3 years ago, and it sounds like a lot more has been occurring, but I'm wondering about either challenges or kind of what you're holding looking forward.
I think what's been different this year for us, Lynn, has been we've been working. So we've been, like you said, traveling and training and watching people use it in multiple contexts. So that's been quite amazing. We've had people, of course, we work with children, but we've had people use it in the context of children who are experiencing chronic illnesses. We've had people use it in the context of sexual abuse, in the context of where there's been difficulties between different kinds of communities. So lots of different kinds of work happening, which I think is always exciting for us. In post the conference, one of the things that we're going to be stepping into a little bit is also looking at working with a group of people who might become trainers going forward. So beyond the Ummeed team, I think for me that's something that's really exciting. It's been a journey of 15 years. And so I think to reach that point is quite something. We have a group of maybe 10 or 12 people who might look to become trainers and to keep doing the work. And other than that, I think for me, what's always really exciting is just working with people. So I think, the work that continues to happen, of course, in the clinical context, but also in the communities. I think when we go into the different communities and really what Peggy was talking about, because it's not conversations a lot of times. I'm thinking of a community that we work, that Ravi works with a lot, which is in a small place called Dadra and Nagar Haveli. And the women, he's working with a group of women, but the people there speak 3 different languages. So oftentimes, that group comes together all speaking different languages. And how we really use dance and song as a way to really bring that community together. And to help them to sort of gather and kind of create a voice for themselves and make demands even, and hopefully eventually at a government level or even at another level to organize themselves and ask for things that would help them or make their lives better. So I think lots of different things. I don't know if Jill and Daisy want to add something. The other thing we are really working on this year is writing up our work. So we're hoping that we'll have some more things written up, because I think we've all been so busy doing things that we've not had a chance to do that. So I think that's something we're focusing on this year.
And I think an exciting part of this journey has also been that more and more people are interested in the narrative ideas and practices. When we started with our long-term trainings, it used to be 6 and 7 people, and now we really have to say no to people. We have interviews, and we really need to decide, where maximum use can be made with these ideas and practices. And it's sometimes really hard to make those calls. And we have our trainings that are, happening, where we have 2-day trainings, we have long-term trainings, but we, hope and wish that we can, spread and more people can do, use these beautiful ideas. But once trainings which were with 6 and 7 people now have, are 20 and 30 people. And like I said, it's more and more people want to get trained in these ideas. So I feel slowly and steadily, more and more people are getting to know about these wonderful ideas and practices. So that's very exciting for us.
Very exciting to hear about. You're just like growing all over the place. I love it. It's so exciting.
I was staggered by one of the statistics right at the beginning, if I saw it correctly, that 54 million children in India are affected with a developmental disability. So to put that in context, I'm speaking to you from Canada. The entire population of Canada is 35 million. So to have 54 million children with a developmental disability, that's just a staggering scale to me to get my head around. And a question, how did narrative ideas and practices, how did they first intersect with your community? When, at what point in time, and how did that first meeting happen?
I think Jay, yeah.
You want to speak? You should.
No, Jay, you should.
So I think the practices just, I think, fit in really well for us in terms of our.
How did you meet? How did you first meet?
How did we meet them?
Yes.
So I think for me, I went into just studying psychology because of a lot of personal reasons. I've had a lot of family members who've experienced different kinds of distress at different times, and as I started studying psychology, I felt like a lot of things didn't fit for what I was what I was experiencing on a daily basis. And so I was looking, and I've also traveled to the US to do a master's, and that's where I got a little bit, introduced a little bit to narrative ideas, but then also had the good fortune of bumping into Maggie, and that's where I met narrative practices for the first time, and then I traveled to Vermont again. That's where I met Peggy and Gay and Shona for the first time. So, and since then, I think Shona, Maggie, and Peggy have really been such a significant part of our journey, and sort of, helped us to really step into the training space, and have been just exploring with us the different things we can do. So yeah, that's been some part of it.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's been when we joined Ummeed, and Jay's kind of been the one who introduced narrative ideas to us. And I remember how taken I was by the ideas because I had no experience. I had a different background, when it comes to the therapies that I was using, and I used to sit and observe Jay's sessions, and would be in awe of the questions and how the session would flow. And I think that's when and Jay introduced us to these ideas, and we had group learning sessions. I still remember 10 years back we would meet in one of our rooms and have these conversations. We would read the maps, and we would be figuring things out. And then we had Shona, Peggy, and Maggie coming in to kind of support us in our journey. So yeah, that's how.
We had one tattered copy of maps between all of us.
Yeah, and we would take turns, and I still remember those days. We would just be kind of underlining and figuring things out and figuring what it meant. So.
Thank you.
And for those of you who know Akansha, of course, Akansha was part of your initial team as well before she moved to the US to do further studies. Hey, I see we're just about, out of time, and I want to get you guys back to sleep. But anything else someone wants to say that's kind of burning there that, yeah, Marcy.
I just want to, first of all, I want to thank these amazing women for getting up in the middle of the night, or, and bringing so much enthusiasm during those hours. I don't even know how you do that. I imagine how enthusiastic you must be when you're fully wide awake and well rested and fed and all those good things. I really appreciated a lot of the things people have already said about the unique cultural values that you engage with in your center, and that you seem to have made these what we call narrative ideas, made them uniquely fit with your own cultural context. And I know for myself, my people are, there's no gathering without food. Otherwise, it's really, really rude. It's like really rude. You're basically telling people to go away if you don't have food. And of course, with children, one has to get used to a lot of unruliness, a lot of, you know, whatever is going on, you kind of got to go with the flow to a certain extent. So I see that. But I do have to say that one question that I had, in a couple of questions, and I know we don't have time to really respond, but I would love to read more about your work and hear more about your work, is how you've, you know, taken these ideas from essentially Europeans and North Americans and Australians and New Zealanders, et cetera, but very Europeanized and North Americanized kinds of approaches, and how you've resisted the effects of that sort of getting a colonizing effect on the practices. We got talking a lot about that in Vermont this year, about various aspects of the effects of colonization. And so I was watching your presentations and looking at the art and the faces of the people and thinking about, you know, how important it is to have kin and extended family be a part of any gathering for my people if one wants to create a sense of health. And that my training in North America was to see people in closed rooms without windows, and children, seeing children alone, and just how crazy that was. That's kind of a definition of insanity to my people, to try to engage in anything meaningful in that way. So I was resonating a lot with the faces and the families and all, but I did want to just sort of speculate about what's been hard for you about taking up these ideas and keeping them culturally appropriate. So that's what was one of the things that was kicking around in my mind. Thank you again so much.
Thanks. Thank you for asking that question. I think those are the conversations I think we have a lot as well. And I think what's helped to sort of make sure that that doesn't happen is to be in a team and to make sure that we stay really close to people's experience. So, you know, as part of the team, like Jill was mentioning, that's thinking about practices and thinking about what works and what doesn't work. We stay very close to what families want, and really try to accommodate that to the best and keep, you know, ideas. Because like you said, I mean, for us to try and see a child and not see the family, you wouldn't even see the child. The parents would just, you know, pick up the child and go away and never come back. And that people really here don't have so much of a sense of individual identity. It's really, you know, the family together, and not only the family, but the extended family, and not only that, but, you know, people belong to communities, and all of that comes into the room, even if it is in the room. I think staying really close to our own experiences of growing up and sort of what has been meaningful for us, what has support looked like for us, and then, you know, continuing to keep having these conversations, I think is something that's been really helpful for us to make sure that, you know, and even then, you know, I have to say that when we move into different contexts, because we also live in an urban context at the end of the day, we're in a city, and a really big city, really chaotic city. And so when we move in for training, I think again, it's been a whole level of, you know, sort of reinventing and, you know, thinking about what it is we're doing, because just simply the pace, you know, just a very small example, like in Mumbai, we would start a training at 8:30. We would finish at 5. People would be, on board. And then as you move into other cities, nobody's even in before 10 o'clock. They want a 1.5-hour lunch break where they can, So it's just been a lot of, I think what Peggy sort of spoke about in the beginning. I think for us, embracing chaos is a way of life. And I think as long as we stay close to that and don't try to order it and structure it and police ourselves, I think that's something we've stayed very conscious about. I don't know if it's a 1-minute answer, so I don't know if it's helpful, but I'd love to continue the conversation sometime.
Thank you so much. This is the time.
Yes, thank you.
Also speak to what our next Collab Salon will be, and you'll recognize one of the names, and that's Shona. Shona Russell and Sarah Khan are coming next time to talk about narrative supervision. So I'm hoping that we can all join, and I want to let you know that even though it's a relatively small group this time, lots of people watch online, and we'll do our best to cobble together a video from Charlie's video, from the videos you've sent, and from what Larry about a half hour ago was able to get on his iPhone and put together. So others will be also watching this. It's our group plus others. So thank you so much. And anything anyone wants to say in saying goodbye?
I feel inspired. I'm going to take your energy into my work this week. Thank you, Jahansa, Daisy, and Jill. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie.
And this is 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning now.
4.
Almost 4.
So amazing. Yeah.
But see
Thank
you all
you.
and hope
Thank
to
you
see
so
some of
much
you
for
at the
having us.
conference.
See you at the conference.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you. Thank you.